Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the BeDifferential Podcast. I'm your host, Ava Gregory, and this week we are joined by Shay Hoelscher, the founder and CEO of Privé Products. Welcome to this week's episode.
Great to be here.
I'm so excited to get into this conversation and share with the listeners just your story, your journey, because it is definitely fascinating, and I'm excited to learn more about it too. But before we really get into it all, why don't you give the listener just a little high level who you are?
Well, as Ava said, my name is Shay Hoelscher, and I have been involved in the beauty industry my whole career. And it seems crazy to think I'm going on, doesn't seem this long, but my end of my third decade. And that's where my life work has been. But my passion is motorsports. And I happen to be a female racer as well. And it's awesome because I met Ava at a collaborative event that we were both there to support Sabre Cook, who I'm partnering and sponsoring with in Porsche Carrera Cup North America. So awesome that we can do this together today. I'm looking forward to our conversation. It's great to be here.
Me too. And I love how you're already kicking it off with this collaborative mindset, because that is just your entire personality. It's your brand. It's how you interact with people. And I think it's truly inspiring as well. So you mentioned your passion is motorsport, but you've been in the beauty industry. So tell us, let's rewind. How did you get started in the spaces that you're in your career? And how did you end up kind of integrating these two passions together?
I'm probably one of the most fortunate human beings on this earth. And it's interesting because I always like to use the description from Forrest Gump. He said, Mom always said that, life was like a box of chocolates. You really don't know where your path is going to lead you. So I am so fortunate that I'm at a capstone in my life where I take my life work, which is the beauty industry, and then my biggest love, which is the motorsports industry and of course career. And I feel like the two are so aligned in a way that my life and I'm going to call it my journey. My journey's been that of filled with three things: passion, purpose, and persistence. And the two lanes really are aligned. And I've spent 37 years in the beauty industry, and it's just been an incredible journey. And I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot. I've worked with very large multinational companies, been actually worked for private equity. So I feel like along the way, I've gained so much valuable success and what works and what doesn't work. And one of the things that I feel like I've been able to, after all this time, really putting all those things together. And Privé Products is really I would say, probably the birth of what I've seen that's worked and not worked. And for me, I poured everything into this brand to make it very personal on so many levels. And what's so great about it is, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the Sabre Cook connection and my passion for motorsports, but this brand, I always wanted a brand that was more than just beauty. And one of the mantras that I have is beauty is kindness. And wanting to always make something that was kind of greater than the sum of its parts. So one of the things that I was very clear about from the time that I launched the brand was I wanted to create a clean brand that is a luxury-based hair care brand, clean, food-grade ingredients, and you would see results in one use. And I was very clear about that. And I was also really clear about doing something that, having a brand that wasn't just about profit, but it was more, for me personally, at my age and where I've been, is to create a brand that was more about purpose. And for me, purpose is everything. And I always felt like, as a business owner, it's the business owners or the company's responsibility to have some sort of a social purpose to give back. And so I've been able to take the aspect of creating and cultivating and curating this beautiful brand that is exceptionally great and has incredible results without the trade-offs. And it's interesting because through my career and all the meetings of the large company marketing teams always said, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And it was always based on profit. And I always dreamt of having a brand. Yes, you have to be profitable, and I will get there. But For me, it was about purpose first and then profit. So
God.
always purpose over profit for me.
I love this so much. And I feel like it's such a relevant topic in today's society as well, because we are so capitalism driven. We're so focused on profit. I mean, in business, you do have to run a profit, right? So where's that line of ensuring that it's a purpose and it's fulfilling and it has a reason beyond just making money? And I'll say, because to any listener, I don't ever want to bring someone on the podcast that I don't know their products and don't believe in their products. This is not like a promotional sponsored thing, but truly like the products that Privé provides is amazing. I was just telling Shay before we started this that I use the finishing spray, the finishing texture spray. I love so much, and I use it all the time. But it really is, you have created such an amazing line of products that it's just so cool. And now you have this crossover, which we can segue into, with integrating and collaborating with Sabra Cook, whom I feel every listener must know already. She's already been a guest on the podcast. But talk to us about how that relationship kind of began, because I think that you have just started really building a flourishing platform together and a partnership that really captures what partnership should look like.
That's so awesome. Well, one of the things that I knew straight on when I launched and birthed Privé was I wanted to use business for a force for good. And what we've been able to culminate, which makes it a lot of fun, is taking that force for good and calling it engine for good, which of course is all about what I'm doing with part of the pieces with Sabra. Wow, where do I start with Sabra? We met up during the pandemic, and we were on a great platform called Women Shifting Gears, and it was a virtual meetup once a month during the pandemic, where women like-minded, passionate for motorsports could come together, and it was from all different walks of the space. Sabra was on it, and I was also on it, and I told my story, my passion with owning a race car and driving a race car and racing a race car, and of course, my company. And Sabra and I connected in person finally at the Women Drive event, which I think you were at, the one in Charlotte.
Yes.
And honestly, Ava, it was like we connected, and it was like any great relationship. It doesn't happen in an instant. It was a connection, and I was curious, and I thought, how cool. And then of course I learned about what it takes to sponsor a professional race car driver and a team. I had no idea. And I said to her, wow, I'm not even cash flow positive yet. And my company's like in the infancy of its time, and I don't have that kind of money. And so we started very slowly. Mm-hmm. And once we started really building an incredible friendship and respect for each other, I learned and saw just the need and the desire. And then it kind of went to the next level when I said, hey, I really want to support you and help you, and I let her my race car to test it. So it was like one baby step after another. It has just been an incredible, probably one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, is to have this authentic partnership with her. And she and I are, my team calls us, you're going to love this, my team refers to us as the power couple, because basically, it's the boardroom or the racetrack. They're very similar. I mean, we have the same struggles and challenges, right? And we've just created this incredible alignment together. And my whole thing is the importance of showing and leading by example. And especially, I've always been a huge fan in my career to offer mentorship to both men and women, but somehow I feel like I've been able to lean in more to mentor women, because being a female and being in a space where I've always been surrounded by men, always in my career, and always men held my positions. I was always usually the only female. And so I've always felt like this need to be able to help other women to navigate their way through their career. I never had that, right?
Yeah.
And to me, even though people might look at me and say, are you crazy, Shay? Motorsports and beauty, they're very aligned, and they have so many similarities. And so for me, it's just been such a joy to be able to work with somebody as savvy and articulate as Sabra is, and really help guide and be a true partner. It's been such a reward. And we're having so much fun doing it and creating so much gravity. And I love it. I love it when there's people are noticing, the work that we're doing. And my whole thing is I am very inspired to show that anything's possible in the world and show all the future generations that, be bold, follow your dreams, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something because anything's possible. And
I'm
it's just
so
a lot of fun.
excited. Like, just as what you're saying, I'm so excited to continue watching the growth of both of you, both of your brands, both of the accomplishments that you're achieving. I do want to take a second because you alluded just a moment ago to some of the challenges that you faced. And I think that throughout your career and throughout everyone's career, right, there are things that we have to kind of navigate and learn from and trial and error. And maybe it is being, the only woman in a room of men, but can you speak to some of the biggest challenges that you've faced throughout your time of building your career or potentially building Privé Hair or Privé Products?
You know what? I think one of the things it's so huge is, and I know this is a cliche, but it's true, doing the same things you've always done and expect different results. And I can tell you, if I've had fantastic success in my career, I am very proud of what I've been able to accomplish. But I have to tell you, probably I would say probably the darkest times and really almost like self-doubting was during the pandemic. And because my industry, as a traditional model of the way the beauty industry was before the pandemic, was really literally turned up on its head. And when I say my industry, so the professional space of hair salons and the closures and the way to market, because before, the way that you would sell to a salon and a salon would sell to a consumer to use a product was only through distribution. And what happened was during the pandemic, that because of all the closures, the distribution model changed and the way to market changed and the way that I knew how to market to the customer. Now, lucky for me, I was poised and I was already on the internet, and I was able to give my clients access to, meaning the consumer or the stylist, to our website. But it might seem crazy to you, but before 2019, a lot of professional hair care brands were not available online. That just wasn't the way that a customer would get the product. So I would say through all of the challenges and obstacles that are specific, kind of more wide scale of, wow, am I going to make it? Can I do this? And I had to just to step back and say, Shay, have confidence. You got to navigate through the changes. You got to try new things. I have a mantra that, I'm always testing and learning. I'm trying new things. And you want so bad to go back to what you've done. And I have basically a playbook of 40 years of what I've seen and what I've accomplished. And literally all that's out the window. So if you can be nimble, you can be open, you can be resilient. I'm very resilient. It was hard though. So I would say through those types of obstacles through my career, stay the course, be committed, don't give up, try new things, be open, be humble, be curious.
Yeah, I think you just captured a really cool example because you mentioned earlier the alignment of motorsports and the beauty industry. And I think that what you just described is very easily able to be translated to motorsports and specifically women in motorsports. And we do need to be resilient. We do have to adapt. And the way that you handled that and the way that you said, okay, we have to get out of the box. We have to do something a little differently and be willing to try it, I think is a really good reminder just across the board. I do want to mention too, I think, that kind of showed some of your leadership skills. And I'm curious what leadership lessons you might have taken away from that process, or maybe a different example. But if, in that time of, oh, wow, we have to totally shift how we're thinking, what do you think you gained as a leader throughout that transition and new perspective in how you dealt with merchandise and distribution?
Wow. You know what? I learned that it's really important to always follow your gut. And I think that so many times in life we don't.
Yeah.
We get caught up in the noise, we get caught up in the chatter, and it's like, okay, sit back, take a breath, think about what you can do, be different. Hopefully we don't have to experience again a pandemic, because it was challenging for business. It was really challenging. And I had just launched May in 2019. So we had just shipped our first batch of product in December 2019, and we know what happened in 2020, right?
Right.
So with the pandemic and when things changed and there was a lockdown and life was just an upended for everybody, I just said, okay, I just have to take a step back. I'm not going to push. I'm not going to prod. This is not the time. And I think the other thing that's so big, which also relates to my partnership with Sabra, we all want everything right now. Everyone
Mm.
does. And we live in this insane culture that everything is now. And I think the other thing, which I don't consider myself to be a patient human. I felt like that experience and that time in my life taught me so much patience. And like that with my partnership with Sabro, when I was at the last Drive with Summit event, I said to the group I was in, I said, if I have one thing to share with other drivers that are looking for sponsors, I said, you have to be patient. You have to be patient and you have to build a relationship. And so I think patience is huge because nothing happens overnight. It never does. There's no success overnight. You look at all the great companies that we all love and respect. If it's a technology company that took 30 years and they didn't advertise in the beginning, all those things, right?
Such great insight. I mean, truly, we do live in a world of instant gratification, and that's across any industry. I think all the time about like this podcast, people are like, how's it going? And I mean, generally speaking, I can take away and say there's things that are a success, but you always want to see that like more, that growth, that overnight. And you're so right. It just isn't there. So I guess this kind of dives into, as a CEO and as an entrepreneur, even though you face these challenges and you talk about your resilience, what drives your passion to continue building the success of your brand, of your business, and of your relationships through partnership that you have?
Really is a mission. And I was at a fundraiser for Project BeDifferential, which I haven't talked about, which is another part of my core business values at Privé. So just to step back for a second to talk about my passion and purpose, which is your question. My purpose that I have in life, which is what gets me out of bed every single day at 4:00 to go work out at 5 and get my day going, is really about, I'm really passionate about having a voice and making our world a better place. It's very important to me. It's very important, and more so than ever. That really is my purpose. So really being able to give back, which is huge, and help others. Like I think about even in my career as a young girl out of college, I didn't have mentorships. I didn't have people that I could call, and I certainly didn't have a female that I could chat with. And quickly through my success in business, I quickly found myself around other men, right? And sometimes I felt a need that I needed to prove myself. But what I learned and what I did was I felt like it inspired me just to sit back and, just prove myself in my results.
Mm.
And in that way, that would be the way that I would feel really good about not having to prove myself, right? Because that's a thing for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I think back to, some of my first jobs where I was at Road Atlanta and, I was often the only woman in the room of some of those conversations. And you're so right. It's very tempting to defend yourself and to prove yourself and to maybe speak when it's not a time to speak. It's a time to act and show that proof in your work ethic and in your outcome. So I think that is such a great perspective. So I'm curious as well, as you're kind of coming from the mentorship perspective and a leader in yourself, what is some advice that you might have for women that are looking to break into more leadership roles, especially in industries where they might be underrepresented, or, I mean, even not necessarily underrepresented, but just kind of exploring what kind of lessons would they need to learn and gain prior to?
I think the first thing is to be authentic. And I also feel like the future generations that I love to be around, I feel like there's definitely a shift in the generation, meaning feels like more of the young women that I surround myself with that are of that age are more authentic. And it's on trend to be authentic, right? I think being relentless is key too. And being true to yourself. Always be true to yourself and follow your gut. Because that's one thing when I look back, if I could give myself any advice today at my age, based on where I was 40, 35 years ago, if we all just follow our gut, oh my gosh, we don't.
No, we don't.
And
I spend too much time overthinking it.
let me overthink this. You're right. And always believe in your value, right? Like what is your true north? What is your why? What makes you tick? Why is it you do what you do? And I just don't think when I look back, I'm like, I wasn't asking myself any of those questions in my ever. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this trend of your focus on having a purpose, on giving back, on believing in yourself and trusting yourself. Was there maybe a defining moment in your career that you feel shaped that philosophy that you have and that leadership style that you have?
You know what? That's such a good question. I think at the very beginning of my developing and creating Privé and looking at the key things that I really wanted to align myself with the brand was when I went to, I support a nonprofit, which I didn't finish my thought. I was at a fundraiser last night for Galentine's, and they're outside, they're in Eastern Washington. So it's a plane ride away from me. My home is in Western Washington. And I knew that I wanted to find a nonprofit where I could have a bigger impact to give back and help specifically women in need, help regain their dignity, give them hope. So I found this nonprofit that helps women in need. And when I went to visit the founder, she took me to a couple of the shelters. And I have to tell you, Ava, that was probably one of the most heartfelt, meaningful experiences in my life, because
Yeah.
I saw women just like you and I, that bad things can happen and it's a domino effect. And it's like, wow. And I remember coming home and telling my husband, saying, oh my God, I want to do more. I am on a mission. And honestly, when I was really young, and again, this is what I think is so cool about the younger generation, I believe that younger people are more about greater, bigger purpose and not just themselves, right?
Yeah.
I think there's something that's changing, and I just think it's so cool. And I just remember thinking, if I weren't like launching a hair care brand, this is where I would be. I would be volunteering. I would be supporting this cause. I would be out there, trying to get money. I would raise money. I just felt like it was such a big purpose for me. And so this is a part of the brand at Privé, where we give 1% back to Project Beauty Share, which is basically take the food bank, and instead of somebody getting food, they would have access to hygiene. Now that may seem, who cares, Shay? What does beauty and somebody who's homeless have to do with getting a bottle of shampoo? Well, if you're down and out and you're trying to get your life back together, if you don't feel clean, you don't feel worthy, you don't feel sexy, you don't feel beautiful, your hair doesn't look good. So we take for granted our 50 plus products that we use every single day as the normal blessed female that needs all her beauty care products. A bar of soap is huge. A bottle of shampoo is huge, right? So that really that was a part of, that is one of the core pillars for my brand. But the other piece is the female empowerment piece, which kind of plays into it. But then that's where Sabre comes in, because I'm all about, supporting and showing future generations to break those barriers. The glass ceilings are starting to break, but we have a long way to go.
Yeah, this is so good. And I just need to take a second, because it is undeniable, your passion and your care as a human being. And this is just such an exciting topic, but I really, really, really admire the mission and the purpose behind what you do, and that continued proof in the pudding throughout every conversation that we're having here, because this is so invaluable. So let's shift, because I think that was a good segue into talking a little bit more about motorsports. And motorsports is a world that thrives on competition, right? I mean, we talked about resilience, we talk about like innovation, how you got creative, also things that are key qualities in business. So how do you think that your background and your experiences from a professional business setting transfers into your perspective on the racing industry and your involvement there?
Well, they're really aligned. in a way that they're both really hard, really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about, okay, so first you have to be super prepared, right? When you think about, okay, if I'm prepared, I've designed, articulated a brand that has the right chemist, that has the right ingredients, that has the right story. If you're a race car driver, you have to prepare. You have to know where you're going. You have to know what circuit you're driving. You have to have the equipment. You have to be, oh my God, you have to be so adaptable and nimble. Like what I
Yeah.
just shared with you with what I had to go through with the pandemic. I mean, being a race car driver and being on track and 100% focused on, what you're going to do, if it's how you're going to pass somebody or what the next lap looks like or the next turn. You're always thinking ahead. You're so uber focused on being adaptable because conditions change. The track conditions change. If you're racing door to door with somebody, you got to be thinking about their next move, what you're going to do, how you're going to get around them, the next turn, the next three turns. They're so similar. They're so similar.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're incredibly similar, and it's really competitive. It's hard, and then you put the racing aspect into like someone like Sabra she has to sell herself, which is just like selling your brand to get sponsorship so that she can do this, right?
Right. So I think just throughout you saying that, I kept thinking of like the word anticipating, like you're having to expect the unexpected and prepare for what you might not know is coming. And I think that your example of talking about how Privé made it through the pandemic is a really good point, where these both series, or both industries rather, are very much changing, I think, in a lot of ways. And to your point with the pandemic, how do you think, what are you doing to stay ahead of the curve and to prepare for the unexpected in your business setting?
Well, I'm always looking at new trends and what's coming, right? So like last year, I just launched in this incredible product, our new scalp reboot serum. So it's all about scalp health and healthy, strong scalp, which our skin is our largest organ. So why wouldn't you put the most amazing, invigorating, stimulating thing on your scalp to create and grow gorgeous, beautiful, strong, healthy, shiny hair, right? So always looking at the trends and knowing and having a gauge on what is coming. And then the other thing that's really hard as you grow is how do you, it takes a lot of cash to make product, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm growing my business, I got to be very calculating with where I'm growing it, how I'm growing it, because I don't want to grow it too fast, too quick, and then I won't be able to support the need and the demand for the product. So it's
Yeah.
really, really challenging. You're literally on a tightrope, right? With
Yeah.
what your little silver ball looks like and how you're going to grow and how much product you have and where you're going to be.
Yeah.
And the other
It's such,
thing that
it's, go ahead.
And the other thing that's really different, that is a thing and hasn't been a part of one's marketing strategy, is the social aspect of what we do and how we buy and what influences us, and to be authentic. And I always want to be a very authentic company, and I want to be aligned with, if somebody is going to share and pitch my brand, it's authentic, and I'm just not like it's not like a money grab. And I hate that it
Yeah.
describes it. It doesn't, to me, that's the best way to describe it, because it feels like there's a lot of instances where it is a money grab, and it makes you feel like I want the person that wants to try my brand, like, wow, that's really cool. And again, it's beyond beauty, which is really my passion that gets me up. Beauty is my widget because it's what I've done. And now I get to create something that's unique and meaningful to me because of what's in the bottle and what it says is in the bottle, and speaks to somebody's lifestyle, because I'm a natural granola by heart and I'm an athlete. So I want to put good stuff on my body, right?
Right. Well, and I think that's so fair. So let's talk about that a little bit, because we've talked about your relationship with Sabra and that partnership. We've talked about your passion for motorsports. Let's talk about you as an athlete. Can you share with the listeners what your racing experiences have been?
So I started like a lot of people do that just have a passion for cars. And
Yeah.
I always have loved cars. Grew up in kind of a motorsports, a car family, I would say. My dad raced go-karts and I was a little girl. and was always at his playground with him and always desired and wanted to race. I loved cars. I loved the motorsports thing. So, and I always dreamt in my career to own a Porsche. I bought my first 911, which was obviously a Porsche, in 2009. And I took the car at the time to basically an entry level to high performance driving called driver skills, which is just skid pad and accident avoidance and autocross and a slalom, an advanced slalom. And literally I was hooked. So I did that several times. And then I was ready to go to the big girl track, which is the racetrack, and went to the racetrack. And of course, that was in 2012. I was the only female at the racetrack. And I said to myself, I am on a mission and I want to get more women into the sport that I have now grown to absolutely love. So about a year later, then I was asked, because of course, my enthusiasm, and I'm a business person. And at the time, the Porsche Club at the time in my area was bleeding with their track days. So the driver education program. So I took it on, obviously with my business acumen, I got it, and my enthusiasm, I built it to a point where there's 25% of the females or people that go to the racetrack are women. So I'm really proud. I'm really proud of that locally.
Yeah.
So I was on a mission, and then as I grew through the local Porsche Club chapter, I became a very good driver, and then I became a Porsche national instructor. I was instructing, and then of course through my street cars, which were GT3s and GT3 RSs, I then was bitten by. I always have dreamt. This was a talk about a dream of having a race car from Porsche, not a street car, even though my cars were very cool and very fast. A race car. So I bought my first race car from Porsche in 2019 at the Rennsport reunion. And that's what I did. So I have actually I have two cup cars. So I have a 2019 991.2 cup car. It's a MR, which stands for Monte Racing, which is a very special car that Porsche only made 9 of. And then last year I bought a 992 cup, which actually, to segue to Sabra, when she and I first connected, she would come and test in my first generation, and now she gets to test in my 992 Cup, which now I'm racing, which is exactly the car that she races in Carrera Cup. So it's awesome.
I love that so much. Like, this is just the amount of full circle moments is so cool to see and witness. And you're still racing, right?
Racing, and it's amazing. And
Yeah.
I'm very competitive. It's really fun.
Well, good. What's your favorite track that you've raced on?
Boy, I would say probably Road America.
Oh, yeah, that's a great track. That is a very good track.
Oh my God. That track was amazing.
It really is. I love it up there. It's so beautiful. And yeah, it's just fantastic. So I guess, Shay, this leaves the question, and you can answer this personally and professionally, whichever. What's next for Privé Products? What's next for Shay Hoelscher?
What's next is this is my year to bring it all together. And I feel like everything in life, there's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. I launched during the worst time ever, and hopefully we won't have to live through that again. But I literally launched at the worst time to go out on my own, take the risk, go for it. This is it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pour my heart into it. And so I feel like I took a step back and waited for things to kind of settle. There's been a lot of changes in the business, and I'm ready. I mean, I feel the amount of gravity under my feet, and I feel it because I've seen it, and I've had the opportunity to rebirth and bring a brand that was broken when I worked with private equity. So I was kind of bitten by the entrepreneurial spirit, which is what led me to doing my own thing at Privé. Mm-hmm. But this is the year. Like, I feel it from just on a sales standpoint, from the increase we have from the consumer channel to the professional channel. My gravity with Sabra and what we're doing collectively, and the notes we're getting, and comments and activations and engagements and all the things that turn into sales. It's happening. So This really is my year, and I'm investing a lot in the company, from PR places. So I'm hoping that you'll see myself, Sabra, on places where we have a huge reach is the goal. So I'm working with a great PR team, and it's so fun because they love our story. Like they're like, "Oh my God, you're a female, you own a beauty brand." That those two things are so cool. And the other thing I'd like to share with you, which I'm super excited about, which is going to take me and the brand and Sabra, because it's a team, which is another thing that I want to point out that is very similar to motorsports and racing and building a brand, is teamwork is everything. If you don't have a team, if you don't have the right team that runs your car, that supports you, that you can trust, that you can feel comfortable. So all you have to do is get in that car and drive it as fast as you can. It's the same thing. You have the team. So I have I'm hosting a editors event, which I'm really excited about at the Thermal Club. And we're inviting two very prominent editors from New York City and two prominent editors from the LA market. And Sabre is going to be with me, and we're going to run both cars. So it'll be really a meet and greet. And we're going to put the passenger seat. We're going to take out all the stuff out of the older race car and put the seat in, so somebody will have the experience of their life to go in the race car. And I'm excited for them to meet me and to see the passion, to see what's behind the brand, experience the track. It'll be at Thermal. So I'm really excited to see where that event and those media placements take us, because the PR company is so excited about our story. And it's exciting, and it's so invigorating. It makes me excited, and it gives me the juice because they're so excited. It's different, right? I'm a female. I own a haircare brand. I'm a racer. I'm racing against all men. It's fun, right? I love it.
Yeah. This is huge. And I've said it already, but I'm so excited to see where this year takes you and where your journey continues. I want to close with one last question. And I think that the purpose of this podcast is to show people all of the avenues and entry points into automotive and motorsport. And I think that there is a huge misnomer that if you're in hair care or if you're in the beauty industry, that's separate and they're segmented out. So what would you say to people that have these diverse passions as you do, and yet there is still a way to get involved? How would you encourage them to blend those, or to explore what blending those passions might look like?
I would recommend, again, go with your gut, go with your instinct. I have to tell you, Eva, when I started presenting and getting more active and sharing with my team more about Sabra Motorsports, my financial commitment, which I kind of did. Ideally, yes, you have to do it through the company. And yes, I'm doing it legitimately through the company now, but I know they all thought I was on crack. I know that. They're like, Shay, I don't get it. Yes, we know you love cars, you love your race car, you love racing, but honestly, they didn't get it. They didn't get it. And it's taken me, Sabre and I have been together now this will be actually the third full year. We started very small. Last year was the first kind of big year. This is the second year, which is even bigger. But I don't think they got it. It just took time. I think we want to push things so quick. We want to do it right now. But my advice is follow your heart and follow your gut and just do it. And don't push it. If it feels like, my analogy is the square peg in the round hole. If it feels like that, don't push it. Just be patient.
Yeah, because I think that's a really good piece of advice, that if it doesn't feel right, don't force it. I think that it's very, very easy to have a goal in mind. I'm very goal oriented. So I'm like, if that's what I want, like that's what I'm going to go for and that's what I'm going to do. But the point of knowing when to say, okay, that didn't work is really, really important. So I love that you highlighted that.
I think some of the things that are great characteristics of one, and this is probably harder when you're younger, but if I could, again, give myself advice, be curious and be humble, and be curious and be patient. Because I think about this, you're like thinking, what? Beauty and motorsports, and how lucky that I can take my life work, which is beauty, and then my passion, and I'm so passionate about it, and they've come together. Yeah. And it's working. And we're telling and it's about the story, right? And it's got to be authentic too.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Shay, thank you so much for taking the time to share your insights and just the smallest snippet of what your journey has looked like. Where can the listeners follow along on your continued journey and Privé Products?
Love it. So my website is privéproducts.com. And you can also follow us at Privé Hair. So Privé Hair is the handle on all of the platforms, including LinkedIn. And then you can follow me, which I really urge you to follow me too. There's a lot of personal stuff, mostly car things on my personal channels. And it's easy. It's Shay Hoelscher, my name, no spaces in between. Super easy.
That's perfect. Well, we will have all of Shay's information down below so you can find her with ease. Thank you for tuning in this week. And Shay, thank you again for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was
Bye.
my pleasure. So much fun. Have a great day.